מזמור לדוד. אדוני רואי לא אכסר, בהינו דשא ירביצני על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי אשובב ינחני במגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא ידע רע כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד שורדי, דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. The words of the 23rd Psalm, a Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me to waters in places of repose. He renews my life. He guides me in right paths as befits his name. Though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table for me in full view of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my drink is abundant. Only goodness and kindness shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai for many long years. So we are gathered here this afternoon, sadly, to say goodbye to Doris Bass. Zichrona Libracha. Devorah Ruth Bat Eliezer Vesara of blessed memory. The daughter of Louis and Sonia Gorstein of blessed memory. The wife of the late Burton Bass of blessed memory. The mother of Jeremy Bass and Jean-Guy Richard, Cindy Bass and Barry Carroll. And the grandmother of Jorel and Shale Minuk. Doris passed away on Thursday, September 20th, peacefully, surrounded by family at the age of 87. This week, we will read in the Torah the last chapters of Moses' farewell speech and the details surrounding his death. At that point, we can't but to realize that Moses lived an exemplary life, so we can get inspired to live an exemplary life as well. When we hear the word legacy, we think of how we'll be remembered, our accomplishments, what we will leave to our children. That's all important. But the Torah said something that is very peculiar. In Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9, we read, God keeps the covenant and loving kindness for those who love him for 1,000 generations. It basically says in a poetic way that kindness have the potential to continue for 1,000 generations. In other words, as God preserves the divine kindness for generations, all the loving kindness we bring to the world by living a life of excellence and integrity will also have the potential to remain in this world for generations to come. And that's a real legacy. We should know that we are here today because of the values and the kindness that our parents and grandparents passed down to us. We are what we are because of somebody else's sacrifices. None of us got where we are now purely on our own. One of the great stories in the Tanakh is the one where Joshua and the people of Israel were in the middle of a great battle. Moses was on a hill, holding up the rod in the air. As long as Moses had his hand in the air, Joshua and the people of Israel would win. But when he got tired and put his hands down, the enemy started winning. Moses realized what was going on, and he got 2 men to help him keep his hand in the air. But my point is, Joshua is down there winning the battle. But what he didn't realize at the time was that the only reason he was winning was because Moses was on the hill holding up his hands. Without Moses doing his part, Joshua and the people of Israel will have been defeated. And today, we are saying farewell to Doris Bass, a person who stored loving kindness for future generations for 87 years. She lived a life pursuing some very important Jewish values with passion. Doris treasured the value of chesed, loving kindness. This value is represented by our father Abraham and our mother Sarah. Abraham and Sarah's chesed was illustrated by their extraordinary love of God, their acts of charity, their campaigning on behalf of the weak, and their lifelong effort to enlighten everybody around them. On the other hand, Doris was a person who was very honest and frank, speaking her mind, even if that sounded like a rebuke. After all, to those who rebuke from the heart, the book of Proverbs says, "Do not rebuke a fool, for he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you." Avot the Rabbi Natan, a rabbinic writing, expands that text by saying, "Love the one who rebukes, and beware the one that glorifies you." Sometimes, to have someone like Doris who can give us an honest opinion could be a blessing and a source to become a better self. Doris was also a person who never gave up. All we have to do is to turn on a television or open a newspaper to realize that there are many reasons to give up hope. Doris understood that if you give up hope, you give up on the future. If you give up on the future, you give up on life. Not only she never gave up, she also liked to cheer people up, to encourage others to never give up. Just like Moses on top of the hill, helping Joshua to win the battle, Doris inspired many with her life and her deeds. To better understand all what Doris did during her life, I would like to invite some people who knew her the best to share with us some of their memories. So, to start the process of eulogizing Doris, I would like to invite first her son, Jeremy.
My mother, Doris, so full of energy and so talented, able to do so many things, and as the rabbi mentioned, she never gave up. She practiced her main profession, real estate, until she was 83, and I was very worried that I might be so embarrassed if I had to retire before she did, because I had no idea when she was going to retire. So that was scary. And she never got bored, and she was never boring. And in fact, she never got bored because she was on a lot of boards. She was on the board of Contemporary Dancers, the Winnipeg Jewish Theatre, I think the Winnipeg Manitoba Theatre. I don't even know all the boards she was on because there were too many to name. So she was involved in so many arts organizations, and she was involved in charity and so many other things. And she was also her own person and didn't always conform to norms, because I know what normally goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas, but I have to share with you a trip I had to Las Vegas with my parents. And we were staying in a hotel just off the strip, and we were figuring out what show to see, because we don't usually go to gamble, we go for the shows. And in the end, we decided to go see Humanity, which I don't know if you know, but that's the Cirque du Soleil show where you have to be 18 to get in to see it. So it's the sexy side of the Cirque du Soleil. So that was a show I saw with my parents, and at the end of that show, the MC calls two people from the audience up to talk about their lives, and guess who was picked for one of the two people? I don't know if it was her hair that went out to there or something. I didn't get her hair, unfortunately, but she was interviewed by the MC at the Humanities Cirque du Soleil, and that's something I'll never forget, too, about her. So she could whip up dinner for 12 in less than an hour with almost no notice, always had food, very hospitable. She was very, very involved in many things, and towards the last year of her life, I was visiting every month, and sometimes I would say, "Comment ça va?" just to see if she remembered her French from grade 8, and she'd say, "Hakol beseder." She'd answer me in Hebrew. So she still took an interest in languages, and she could also guilt too. Like in school, when I'd come home with a 99 in a subject, she'd say, "Come on, what happened to the last mark? A little bit more effort. Could have one more mark." And now that I'm a teacher, I actually know why you usually never get more than 99. It's because these computer systems that the school boards use were designed a long time ago when memory was expensive. And they only have 2 digits for the mark. And if I actually now as a teacher, if I want to give 100 to a student, I have to go to the principal, ask permission. They have to print a special report card where they put the 1 in manually beside the 2 zeros. Because one student once got a mark of 00, and they had forgotten to manually print the 1. And so the student was worried, how did I get 0? I got like perfect on all my tests. And so now that I'm a teacher, I understand this. But so maybe it's a good thing I didn't get 100, because maybe I would have had 00 instead. I don't know. So she could guilt. But it was, as the rabbi said, a form of rebuking, and that was a good way to always look how to improve oneself. So it's going to leave a big hole in my life now, and she was someone that always meant a lot to me, and I think that's all I have to say for now. Thank you.
So before I call Cindy, I would like to call now Jorel and Shale, Doris' grandchildren, to come to eulogize the grandmother.
The support of everyone here means the world to my family and I. Your positive energy has helped us and continues to help us overcome a very significant loss. This week, as I said goodbye to my grandmother, I realized just how lucky I was to have had her around for the last 28 years. My grandmother played an integral part of my life. She was the most influential mentor I had the honor of learning from. She was an incredible matriarch, and she made me who I am today. She was the kind of person whose heart grew and made room for every new person that she met. Not only did her disposition influence me, it influenced everyone she met along her journey. As many of us did, I often sought advice from or sanctuary with her. When she was around, I always felt safe and welcomed. My mom often told me stories about how my grandparents' door was always open. They were the best hosts who threw the best parties. Doris was an amazing cook. She loved to cook for herself and other people. Whether it was just one visitor or a whole group of people, you never left her house hungry. While I was in school, I often visited at least a few times a week for a bite to eat, sometimes twice in one day. I could be craving the strangest meals, like latkes in July. She had no problem whipping some up, as long as I grated the potatoes. Until the last few years, my grandmother had more interest and energy than anyone I'd ever known. As many of you know, my grandmother never stopped working. Whether it was selling a house, cooking the short order meals, or whipping Bertie into shape, she never stopped. I was convinced she was never going to retire. Even though she worked harder than anyone else I've ever seen, she somehow always had time to go out of her way for everyone else. She was always a phone call away, and one of the reasons she was the best real estate agents in the city is because she always answered the phone. Even the second line, it didn't matter important how the first call was, she always answered that second line. Her selflessness was unmatched, and her generosity was the reason why my family and I could live life the way we wanted to live. She inspired us and pushed us to follow our dreams. Her smile was infectious, and some of the biggest smiles were induced by a smile on either of our faces. Sometimes she wanted to see us smile so bad that she didn't think twice about some of our requests or favors that we asked of her. I remember one when I was 11 years old. I asked my grandmother to buy me a very special CD, not just any CD. I asked her to grab me a copy of Limp Bizkit's Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water. She knew how much music meant to me and apparently didn't think twice as to why my mother wasn't going to get this CD for me. If you're unfamiliar with this album, let me assure you that no 11-year-old should be in possession of this music. I'll never forget the day where Baba Doris and Zeta Bert hand-delivered their CD in their Volvo to our house on Queenston. Somehow, she chose to ignore the parental advisory sticker on the case, and I really wish I could have been there to see the reaction on the HMV's clerk when she went to go buy it. My family and I will never forget what our grandmother has done for us. She is so much a part of who I am, and even though I knew she'd be gone one day, I still can't quite believe she's gone. We'll never forget you.
Next, I would like to invite Cindy, Doris' daughter, to come eulogize her mother in a very special way.
My 6'3" son. Larger than life, dynamo, amazing, tour de force, big heart, remarkable, one of a kind, go-getter, queen of River Heights, full of vitality. These are the words that some of you used to describe my mom in the notes you sent after her passing. I would like to add one more adjective to the list, the Energizer Bunny, which in my mind is a very apt description. My husband Barry, who is 30 years younger than my mom, used to look at me, sigh, and say, I wish I had her energy. She was truly incredible in that she had no problem raising her children, being a top seller in real estate, making dinner for 10 at the drop of a hat, attending every social event under the sun, and giving of her heart and soul completely. When her 2 adult children went back to school in middle age, retiring was nowhere on her radar. So it seemed very natural that so late in life we would have long, fulfilling careers and not entertain retirement for a long, long time. Jean-Guy very aptly said to her, "Doris, it will be embarrassing if your children retire before you do." Her real estate career spanned 4 decades, many of which she made the top list of 50 agents in the city, and in 1993, she made the top 10 list in the whole city of Winnipeg. Mom had an extraordinary talent for not only matching couples to the right home, as she was such a good listener to hear what people wanted and needed, that she brought at least 4 couples together in matrimony. Her matchmaking abilities were the envy of many, and quite brilliant, actually, because afterwards she would sell them a house, bringing a new meaning to double-ending a real estate deal. She was never afraid to speak her mind, and she told me a real estate story that she herself couldn't quite believe. She had found what she thought was the perfect house for this young couple, but they were quite hesitant because they felt it needed work. She proceeded to give them a lecture on being the generation that needed instant gratification and how sad it was that they lacked patience to fix it and make it their own. She later reflected on her words and felt bad that she had spoken harshly and was sure she had lost them as customers. To her amazement, they called her back that evening saying that they had reflected on her words and agreed with her and would like to buy the house after all. She definitely had a way with people like no other. For many years, both my brother and I lived away from Winnipeg, and as her need to nurture people was so strong, she adopted individuals and couples as her surrogate children. Her home was always open to anyone and everyone to provide companionship or give advice, solicited or not. She fed many, many people, preparing both fancy and casual meals graciously and effortlessly. And of course it helped. She was an amazing cook. Unfortunately, neither of her children inherited her speed or talent for cooking, which I'm sure disappointed her. Seriously, though, she always was proud of her children in any of our accomplishments, and of course her 2 grandsons were the apple of her eye. She could not do enough for them. She was generous to a fault. Mom was a proud and strong woman. I feel so blessed to have had her in my life for as long as I did. She loved and appreciated music her whole life, and it made her so happy that both her children were musical. I would now like to share with you a Jake Buggs song called Pine Trees. Love you, Mom. This one's for you. You can walk in the pine trees, you can sit down, you can feel the earth in your hands. You can run from all this, you can go the long way, you can carry my heart in your hands. As a crow flies straight, holds me in his gaze, as he rises to his fate, we can do the same. I try not to visualize other people's eyes or their compromising ways. Now I leave them far behind, try to hide the root of my escape. You can sit in the pine trees, you can feel at home. You can breathe a sigh of silence in the woods. You can bawl your heart out, make your feelings known. as the grass already knows, as a crow flies straight, holds me in his gaze, as he rises to his fate. We can do the same. I try not to visualize other people's eyes compromising ways, as I leave them far behind, try to hide the root of my escape.
Thank you all for sharing your eulogies with us today. May the memory of Doris Bass be an inspiration for 1,000 generations to come. Please rise now for the El Malach Rachamim prayer, the memorial prayer. El Malach Rachamim Shochem B'meroimim Hametzeh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina B'ma'alot Kedoshim Kedoshim Uteorim Kezoyer Araki Amazirim Et Nishamat Et Nishamat Devorah Ruth Eliezer Vesara She'alecha Leolama Bavur Shanu Mitpalelim Ve'ad Atzkarat Nishemata Began Eitein Began Edentei Menuchata Lachem Balarachamim Ya astire ella beseder kena favleolamim Utzeror bitzror achayim Achayim et nishemata Adonai unachalata Vetanuach veshalom Al mishkava Venomar Amen. God, full of compassion, dwelling on high, grant infinite rest in the shelter of your presence, in the ranks of the saintly and pure, radiant like the bright heavens, to the soul of Doris Bass, who has gone to her eternal home. As we pray that her soul be remembered, may she rest in the Garden of Eden. So, compassionate ruler, shelter her beneath your wings forever and gather her soul in the bond of life. God is her true inheritance, and may she rest in peace in her resting place. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. In a few minutes, we're going to proceed in caravan fashion to the Sherry Zedek Memorial Park, located in the corner of Armstrong and Main Street. If you are coming with us to the cemetery, please remember to turn on your four-way flashers, and please remember to stop at stop signs and red lights. After burial, everybody is invited to proceed with the meal of consolation that is going to take place at the Shaftesbury, at the second floor, specifically on the chapel on the second floor of the Shaftesbury residence. And because tonight is the beginning of the festival of Sukkot, the festival of Booth, according to the Jewish tradition, there is going to be no Shiva except immediately after the burial at the Shaftesbury. So remember, this is probably the only opportunity you will have to visit the family, because the holiday of Sukkot interrupts the Shiva. So it's going to be just a few hours of Shiva for Doris Bass. I would like to extend special thank you on behalf of the family to the healthcare workers from Blossom Senior Care for all the help, love, and compassion they provided to Doris during her last year. And I would like to announce that donations on Doris' memory can be made to the Canadian Museum of Human Rights or to the Doris and Burton Bass Fund at the Jewish Foundation of Manitoba. So at this point, I would like to invite first the pallbearers to exit the chapel, to assume their places alongside the coffin. I would like to invite now the family to exit the chapel and to proceed directly to their transportation, as is traditional of the Sherry Zedek congregation. And for the rest of us, our sign to leave the sanctuary will be when the back doors will get open. Meanwhile, I would like to explain what we do. As soon as you exit the building, please form two lines outside through which the coffin will find its way into the hearse. So remember to either exit the building or to leave the space in the lobby so we can easily make the transition into the hearse. Just a few more seconds and the door will be open in the back. Thank you all for coming.